Hi, I'm Maria Darcy and I am the creator of PoGO Potty Panda, a positive potty training system. I'm a licensed psychologist and I'm the mother of twins. And PoGO came about, as I mentioned in the first recording, as a result of my experience potty training my twins, as well as my training and experience as a psychologist. So in this part, I would like to talk about positivity, patience, and persistence. I'd like to first off start with positivity. Now, in terms of potty training, it's an intensive process for everybody. So attitude really makes a difference. The more you can engage in this process from a positive perspective, first of all, approaching it as an opportunity for you to have some quality one-on-one time with your child, and in a time when they're really learning something that is very exciting and also is going to give them a great deal of autonomy and independence. So it's a very positive time in your child's development, but also in your experience as their parent. When we think about having a positive attitude, again, that goes all the way from preparing your child to be potty trained in terms of how you approach it, how you talk about it, how you just your general energy around it in the pre-training stage. And then on the days of potty training, and as I mentioned in the earlier recording, I really do recommend, if you can devote a few days to more intensive potty training, that's really helpful. So on those days, maintaining as positive an attitude throughout as you can. Now again, this can be tricky because potty training can be very tough for some children, for some parents, and so it is very important to recognize that maintaining a positive attitude may be more challenging than it first sounds. Certainly most parents start out potty training with the best attitude and very positive about it, and that's great. Maintaining that can be tough, as you know, the hours go by and the accidents occur and you're wondering if it's ever going to kind of click for your child. I'm very confident that if you can stick with it for a few days, most children will get the hang of it. Certainly they will make huge strides over the course of a few days in terms of becoming really competent and comfortable using the potty. In terms of maintaining a positive attitude, and again, I think I want to be clear, a positive attitude, I'm not talking about an overly positive attitude. I'm talking about just approaching it from a very relaxed, optimistic, this is going to be a fun, engaging, quality experience for you and your child. That's what I'm talking about, and communicating that to your child. What you don't want to do is to make it into too much of a big deal, where your child, especially if your child is a little bit more on the anxious side or sensitive, where they begin to feel intimidated by or overwhelmed by what's about to happen. So the more you can kind of approach it from a pretty relaxed, laid back, but upbeat and positive perspective, the better. Now, in the trenches of potty training, it can be hard to maintain that attitude, as I said. So I think it is very important to pay attention to how it's going as the day is unfolding. I think it's important to have fun, engaging activities you can do, have some time where you get some downtime, so having your child do some reading or watching their favorite little cartoon, where you don't have to be quite as on and quite as engaged. However, you're still paying attention. Also, when I potty trained our twins, they were about 2.5 at the time, and the reality is we started that around 9 a.m. in the morning, and we really went through till about 1 or lunchtime, where there was fairly intensive attention to what we were doing with them and readiness in terms of if they were ready to go potty or not, and paying attention to some of those signs. We were also increasing their fluids so there would be more of an opportunity to practice going potty. But then we did have a break. Our children were still going for naps at that time, which is helpful, I think, because it gives them a break, it gives you a break. I think a break is really necessary because it's a long day and this is an intensive process. And then for breaks, going nap, we use nap diapers, and so kids go in diapers, they go for their nap, and they get back up maybe between 1 and 2:30, and so after nap from 2:30/3 o'clock on into 6, 7 at night was our second period of potty training. And in terms of maintaining a positive attitude, having breaks actually does really help. And also, as I mentioned in the first video, having no other responsibilities to demand your attention or time is helpful, because that helps you maintain your energy for this process. And also, I think when things begin to feel like they might be going south, when accidents just seem to be happening over and over, to be able to approach those with the best possible attitude, not making a big deal about them, maintaining a positive attitude towards, next time we'll make it, and no worries, and get back to whatever we're doing. You're doing a great job wearing your underwear. All of that stuff is really helpful in terms of when things begin to get challenging in the process. My perspective is that certainly the first day and the second day can be tough. So this is where coming up with the second P is important, and that's patience. Potty training usually, almost always, takes some time. And it's not always unidirectional. Like, sometimes children will do well for a few days or a week or so, and then they kind of backtrack a little bit. So recognizing that it's not something that gets done overnight, not something that gets done even over the course of a few days. It really does take time, and often people say it takes up to 6 months for a child to be fully potty trained, and certainly for some children it's much longer, and there are occasional accidents well into elementary school years. But certainly if you're approaching it from more of an intensive few days where you do dedicated potty training, you still need to be very aware of being patient with the process. And it can feel difficult, I think, when, day one, it seems like you're still things are not clicking, and you're not catching, your child is not really getting what's going on, that they're or you're missing the signs. It can be demoralizing. And certainly day two comes along and some of that stuff is still happening. Often, second half of day two, maybe even the first half, children are beginning to often make some links, and day two, as you might imagine, tends to be more successful. And I hate to use the word successful, but kids tend to be able to get to the potty and pee at least more often, which is great and helpful, and certainly can help with motivation for everybody. But often you're still in the process, and I think if you can get a third good day out of it, by the end of the third day things are generally in a good place, especially around peeing. For some children, pooping is tougher and more challenging, and we can talk certainly about that. But again, across the board, maintaining a positive attitude, being really patient with the process, both for your child and for yourself, is important. And being able to step back and get perspective on, here we are, we're working with a 2.5-year-old. They're certainly going to get potty trained, and it's going to happen most successfully and the soonest if we can maintain this really facilitative attitude. The last P is really, I think we've already referenced it in terms of talking about patience and positivity. It's persistence. Really, I recommend, if you're going to start potty training, to be ready to devote time to it. Certainly, what's not helpful is starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And I think no parent goes into potty training with that as a goal, for it to be an interrupted process. But in the trenches of potty training, sometimes you can feel like throwing in the towel and just putting on a diaper because you just don't have the energy to kind of deal with another accident, or you're just tired. If you can not do that, if you can persist, again, my sense is that with the best attitude, and in terms of patience and being positive and approaching things in a calm, relaxed, engaging manner, you will and your child will be in a much better place at the end of a few days. So again, It can be tough at times. It can be difficult to imagine things coming right, and yet more often than not they do. However, I do want to say though that if something comes up in your life or in the life of your child, as in if they get a cold or some interruption happens that really just makes the time not right, it is important not to persist in the face of that. So again, use your own judgment in terms of whether or not there's a need to interrupt the process. But most often, if you are able to persist in a manner that maintains those facilitative attitudes I talked about earlier, that's really the best way to go. I just want to say a tiny little bit about, for some parents, it is actually difficult to find some free days to do this, and that's just the reality of their lives. If that is the case, again, and I would really say, really, see if there is a way to at least get a day or two that you could generally devote to it. But if you can't, then I would say having maybe 3 to 4 hours each day that is potty time as opposed to diaper time is helpful. Again, it's harder for the child because they're moving between two different ways of dealing with peeing and pooping. However, if you really make it a distinct shift from diaper time to potty time, and again, when you're in that space where it's potty time, there's no return to diapers at all. You're down, you're using underwear or pull-ups, ideally underwear from my perspective, but it is potty time, and so your child will really understand that in this period of time that's what we're doing, and you're monumentally devoted to that as a focus. That certainly is a way you can approach this. It's much more difficult and challenging because again you're having to move between two different ways of being, but sometimes life just requires that of some people. The other thing that sometimes people talk a lot about is, nap time training and nighttime training. My recommendation is not to worry about that initially. Just go for daytime training and get that down for the most part, and then I think nap time and nighttime can be dealt with as time goes on. So, like I said earlier, I hope this is helpful to you as you approach potty training and start engaging in it.